as well. So I'm going to pass it over to Caitlin to help kick us off and introduce our friends.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Very excited for today. I'm so thankful so many of us have gathered here. We are in for a special treat. Speaking of summer treats, we definitely have great reflections by Amy for her year of visiting partner agencies across all 34 counties, which is such an important endeavor, and has shared a wealth of knowledge back with the network strategy engagement team and other teams already. But this is a chance for everybody at the food bank to hear a lot of the trends, a lot of the feedback. The partner agencies are kindly, thoughtfully, deeply engaged, sharing back with us so we can work alongside them that much more. And even better is we actually get to be joined by Martha's Mission Cover today, a partner agency of ours out in the New Bern area, which a couple of fun facts, Miss Mary, if I can, just before I pass the mic to you. In all my time at the food bank, this is even before the New Bern branch was a branch. Martha's Mission has been around much longer than most partner agencies. Like I said, even before there was a branch in New Bern, they were based out of the Moorhead City area, and they've been in partnership with us since 1987. So certainly well engaged, has seen so many things over the years and decades in partnership with the food bank, and certainly in their community. This past fiscal year, they are able to serve over 500,000 meals to neighbors and communities throughout that part of the area, which is such a big lift and important work. They are open multiple days of the week. They are all volunteer run with deeply committed and engaged volunteers, so no paid staff, and yet we're able to serve that much. Amy, in her notes when she had done the visit, the tour there, had said, Martha's Mission, y'all do an excellent job in serving nearly 9,000 individuals a year. So you think of all the people in North Carolina that are accessing services, 9,000 just to come to your doors is such a big lift and such an important service. Some things shared back about, shifts we're seeing in who's being served and who's coming to your doors. Unsheltered individuals, folks with multi-generational families. Would love to hear more about that and the shifts you're seeing with neighbors and services you're providing to move well with those shifts. A fun thing I really liked with the note shared was for every child, they receive a kid bag focused on kid-friendly items and things that they themselves can easily open, low heat items, things that they can help prepare and really be engaged in the joy and the experience of eating and cooking with their families. So when you think of New Bern, I would definitely think of Martha's Mission, being around for so many years, so much work. When asked for some staff feedback from New Bern staff on the relationship, to be able to highlight that today. Passionate, dedicated, you bring your heart into your work. You're a wonderful partner, deeply committed, and well known in the community. You can go into a grocery store and a food drive would be hosted, and you would know it's actually going to Martha's Mission Covered, which I think is such a great reflection of being tied to your community and known in the area. And a really important final thing I'll say, because I think there's a lot that could be said, but it was reflected that the way you build relationships, you can feel your friendship when you're at Martha's Mission. It's not just about serving, it's the way you build relationships and how that dignity, how that joy, how friendship comes into work you do, that heart you really do bring. And that impacts, of course, anybody coming to your doors, and is certainly well felt and very much appreciated by food bank staff, by community members and neighbors. So a very big thank you, Miss Mary and team, for everything that you do. And if I may, if you don't mind taking the mic, Miss Mary, that'd be wonderful if you could introduce everybody from Martha's Mission before Amy gets into more of her presentation. But thanks, y'all. Thanks for being here today.
Caitlin, thank you so much. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Well, with me, it's such a pleasure to do this. I will have to tell you. So we always love talking about Martha's Mission, and you have said everything I was going to say. So there we go. I do have just a little bit more to add. But Amy, we enjoyed your visit so much and had just a wonderful time with you that day. Sorry you had to leave quickly and go somewhere else, but we certainly understood. So you are invited back anytime you want to. Just bring your beach towel and a beach chair, and we'll go sit on the beach. My name is Mary Schrantz, and I'm the executive director here at Martha's Mission. And with me in this office, she's a little off camera right now, is Ginger Wade. You got to get a little bit in the. Hey, y'all. There you go. So she is our manager, and she has been at this mission a long time. And you talk about the passion and the dedication. This young lady has that. She is here all day, late into the evening sometimes, especially when it's needed. And she is considered the face of this mission in a lot of ways. Also with us, except he is on his own meeting, Zoom Teams. We're not on Zoom, we're on Teams, is Chris Taylor, and he is the president of our board. And he is just a wonderful asset to this organization. He does so many things for us, not just guiding the board, but he's our IT guy, and he helps us whenever we have just the need for additional volunteers. So he's just a good guy. And if he's listening, Chris, you owe me $5 for saying that. So Amy, do you want me to continue on, or did you? Okay, well, I'm excited to tell you about the many activities at the mission, but what I want to do is I want to go back to where it started, because as you mentioned, we have a history. According to that history, in 1979, the women of the First United Methodist Church here in Moorhead recognized the need for an emergency food pantry to help the needy citizens in Carteret County. And Mother Hubbard's Cupboard was born. In 1985, the name Mother Hubbard's Cupboard was changed, thank goodness, to Martha's Mission Cupboard. And of course, that's the biblical reference to Mary's sister, Martha. And at that year, the mission supplied about food to about 10 families a week, maybe 480 for that entire year. And that's an important number to remember, because just a couple of years later, being a coastal and tourist community, red tide, which is an algae bloom that is harmful to marine life, was having a huge impact on our shellfishing industry. And as the bloom got worse, it continued and got worse in 1988. More and more commercial fishermen and their families, our restaurant and motel employees, fishing pier employees, seafood dealers, charter boat captains, and their employees came to the mission for help. The mission continued throughout that year to respond to this plight, thanks to the wonderful donations of our community at that time. We served 15,522 people in need, just that time frame, that year alone. Now, luckily, eventually all were able to return to work, but by that time, the churches realized that there were more citizens who needed food, and the mission needed more space. So in 1988, the mission became incorporated, received its 501c3 tax-exempt status, and moved to its current location here in Moorhead City, which is on Bay Street, which that name gives you a little indication. We are right adjacent to a big body of water, not the ocean, but just the same. But thanks to the efforts of our First Baptist Church and many in the community who wanted to be successful, they built this building for us. Now, fast forward to 2025, last year, we served over 9,000 neighbors. That's the sheltered and the unsheltered. And as you know, this year that number will likely increase. We distributed over 200,000 pounds of produce and recovered over 260,000 pounds of food. More than 27% of our neighbors are children, and over 20% are over the age of 60. Our daily deliveries from local food stores totaled over 450,000 pounds last year, and that also includes our area churches and the local citizens that bring us food almost daily. Our clients are referred to us by the with a voucher system from Department of Social Services, Carteret County Health Department, area churches, a local OBGYN, and other organizations. And as you know, they are the elderly living far below government poverty level. A breadwinner a family whose breadwinner was injured or sick. Families who have major medical bills, mentally or physically disadvantaged citizens, abused and abandoned spouses with children, laid off, furloughed workers, veterans, and the homeless. Every 30 days, we can provide each family with a variety of shelf-stable food like rice, beans, soup, mac and cheese, peanut butter, jelly, oil, flour, and sugar, along with the fresh produce, frozen meats, breads, and desserts that we get from our recoveries. The amount of food we give is based on the number of people in their family, but the value averages around $500 every 30 days, which is wonderful. We are seeing larger families with grandparents as head of households and more senior citizens. Our regular food distribution, along with our regular food distribution, a couple other special projects, as you mentioned, were added throughout the year. Our Kids Bag Project, which gives us the opportunity to identify the children of the families when they come to us, ages 3 to 16. They get a backpack filled, and sometimes to the brim, filled with the easy open, easy preparation items like the mac and cheese in the smaller containers, the cereal, the tuna and chicken pouches, pudding, applesauce, and other snacks. And currently, we're distributing about 200 or more bags monthly. And this is something else that I don't know of any other food pantry that's involved in, not in this area. At the beginning of 2024, we were asked by the North Carolina Medical Society to coordinate a food service project for pregnant women who are food insecure in this county. This project provides specialized food for expectant mothers, is designed to meet the nutritional needs for the unborn baby. The Mother's Care Project, as we call it, was started on research that the ECU Brody School of Medicine, in conjunction with the North Carolina Medical Society, had identified as a need for better nutrition to pregnant women, especially in Eastern North Carolina, and found that medically tailored nutritional food to pregnant women would benefit not only the mother, but the developing child as well. So when these patients are provided with a supply of over-the-counter specialized food based on high nutritional, low sugar values through our local OBGYN and the Carteret County Health Department. Now, when the expectant mother comes to the mission, we are also then able to give a supply of food to the family on her visit. But because of the space constraints that we have in our small building right now, both of these projects, the Kids Bags and the Mother's Care Project, they're housed and distributed at a local church here in Morehead City. But it's wonderful to have that kind of partnership. The mission does not receive any assistance from federal, state, or local governmental agencies. And as an all-volunteer organization, our resources, the cash, the non-cash, come from our generous donors, our area churches, our food stores, food drives, grants, and the good citizens of Carteret County and beyond. Our challenges are space and volunteers. We have outgrown, as a matter of fact, 7 or 8 years ago, we outgrew our current facilities, and we are always looking for able-bodied volunteers. But I am happy to tell you that after many years of searching and raising enough money, in May of 2024, the mission purchased a 2.4-acre lot in Morehead City, and we're working with a local architect to complete the design. And Mindy Needers with Armstrong McGuire is guiding us in a feasibility study so that we can start our capital campaign to build a new 11,000 square foot building, which will be about 3 times or more the space that we have now. We will have more than 1,300 square feet of refrigerated and frozen storage for fresh food, produce, dairy, and other perishable food. And we are planning dedicated volunteer workspaces for improved efficiency, a welcoming lobby, and neighbor engagement in intake area, drive up food pickup, a demonstration kitchen where families will learn practical nutrition and meal preparation skills, an enlarged thrift area where neighbors can select from gifted clothes, excuse me, and household items, an expanded space for community partnerships, education, and outreach. Of course, we couldn't do this without the food bank and its regular shipments and pallets of food and supplies, the support for equipment, and the professional contacts that we have just had a great time in maintaining and tapping into when we need you. Since we are so limited in space, it would be helpful to know in advance when that shipment is coming so inventory can be moved and shifted as needed to make space. Our dedicated volunteers have worked more than 6,000 hours last year to greet clients, record the visits, pack food bags, assist clients with their food, sort food, stock shelves, pick up recoverable food from area grocery stores, and receive donations from the community at our loading dock. We're open Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, where we serve between 30 and 45 households a day. We are currently using the Pantry Saver database for neighbors intake, our donor database, and weighing the food. But we are very interested in the SIMC program that the food bank is offering. The only disadvantage that we see with that right now would be the interface between the database and the scale that we're using to weigh the donations coming in and the products going out. Now, Chris may, he's our technical guy, so he may have more input on this to share. Chris, are you on?
Yeah, hey Mary, thanks. I don't have
Yeah.
much to share. You've covered it all really well. But I would say we were eager to get on board with SimC and become part of the network and sharing the database. I think it obviously would streamline how we would interact with you guys, how we would report our demographics and our neighbor visits back to the food bank. There is one function that we have in our Pantry Saver program that allows us to weigh the food coming in, whether it be through the food bank or through our retail partners. And that scale measurement goes automatically into a database by calling up the donor's name. We also then weigh the quantity of produce that's going out to our individual neighbors in our households, which has a great function for being able to report out and keep those data available to us, which have become extremely valuable for us in our granting, in writing grants. And so if it's a possibility to add that feature into SimC, we would love to be a part of a discussion that would see that feature enhancement. And we can share more about our experiences with Pantry Saver and some other functions that we have in there and how they may compare and contrast with what SimC is offering. I see that there's a webinar tomorrow afternoon, and I'm looking forward to joining that one and seeing a demonstration of that software. So I realize I may be speaking ahead of what will probably be presented tomorrow at the webinar. Thanks, Mary.
Thank you. Ginger, did you have anything you wanted to add? Okay, she's over here. She's going to be telling me anything that I have missed. But just to close this out, because I do feel like that, we're singing to the choir here, but it's always good to hear, I think, the other areas and what we have done to establish ourselves in this community. This community loves us. There is no doubt about that. I have never asked somebody for something that they haven't either given me what I've asked for, given me more than I've asked for, or given me a better alternative. So you really can't beat that out of a community. So we will continue to provide this service to our neighbors as long as they continue to believe in us. So thank you again for this opportunity, and we would be glad to answer any questions anyone may have and look forward to staying for the rest of the meeting.
Thank you so much, Mary, and thank you, Chris. Really appreciate your time. If folks have questions, you can drop them in. We'll answer them throughout. Drop them in the chat. For folks that joined a little later, we were joking in the beginning that Martha's Mission also has the most beautiful view of any of our pantries. It is waterfront view. Don't see that often, but shows the care of the community that they invested, what they have invested to make that facility possible. And we are very excited about the new facility and what that will mean for the community. And yes, sometimes very too much waterfront, I've also heard. So the water comes with a price. I mean, you don't get that beauty for nothing. I'm going to share my screen. Can everybody see the slide?
Yes.
So you heard a lot of the themes, and it was really consistent across the 34 counties that I was joined from Mary. There was so much that was consistent. And, over the past year, for those that have not been aware, I've had the opportunity to visit more than 40 of our partner agencies and at least one partner in all 34 counties. And truly, it has been one of my most meaningful experiences, not only as my first year in this role, but in my career. It has helped me understand our service area so much better. It's challenged assumptions. It has just reinforced how important it is that we listen to our partners and our neighbors and what communities need from us. So today I'm just going to share a little bit what I heard, what's working, where partners may be struggling, what they may need from the food bank. I'll share this deck. You all will have access to the deck. So if it's helpful for anything that you all are doing with your departments or planning, just know that you'll all have access to this. But I wanted to start with what's really important is that everything I heard from our partners in every visit completely validated our Rooted in Community strategic plan. And we knew that we had already gotten so much input from our partners, from neighbors for this plan. And what we heard is just to continue this strategy and gave more practical guidance of how we can actually execute the strategy. And what I am really excited about is how do we continue these feedback loops? And I know the network engagement team is working on that. And thanks to the incredible network engagement team, the partners that I visited were a variety: church pantries, college pantries, healthcare, large standalone nonprofits, small volunteer-led ministries, some open every day, some distributing once or twice a month, some with paid staff, some with all volunteer staff, and just the relationships varied as well. The different types of programs they may participate in with the food bank, like TFAP or CSFP or some of our child programs. So it was really interesting to see such a diversity. So I just want to say a shout out to the network engagement and strategy team and Janelle for coordinating all of those visits, because it was really, really meaningful. I think ultimately, there was definitely not one typical partner, just like there isn't one story of hunger in our community and in our 34 counties. And we certainly know there's not one solution that will work everywhere. So that is really what is the heart of our strategic plan: is how do we understand those local needs, listen to the people closest to the work, and make sure we're building those solutions together. And there's a picture of our beautiful friends at Martha's Mission as well. And we also have a couple other of our partners. And I also got to visit with some of our network engagement team members too, like Hannah, which was extra special. So the clearest headline, this is just a summary, and we'll go into a little detail of each of these areas, is that our partner network is incredibly strong, deeply trusted in the community, and so committed to this work. Unfortunately, the demand is continuing to outpace the supply. There's infrastructure challenges at many, if not most, of our partner agencies. There's transportation capacity challenges, volunteer bandwidth, and it was interesting. Some have a wealth of volunteers and some are struggling to find enough volunteers. So saw the whole gamut of that, but just saw so many remarkable people doing so much, and often with very, very limited resource. One of the leaders at Handy's, and I'm excited, I'm actually going to their distribution this Friday, told me that they distribute food in the rain, snow, sleet, or hail. Unless there's a state of an emergency, they're out there. And Dr. Gregory said, very simply, on a rainy day, my stomach still growls. And I think it just shows our partners show up on the good days, the hard days, and they're doing it all while serving more people, dealing with less predictable food supplies, and often working in facilities that are not meeting the needs that they have. So the themes are really that the need is growing and it's changing. Pounds alone do not tell us the whole story or if what food is truly useful. Infrastructure is a direct effect on access, and dignity matters, but it does not look the same in every community. And all of these tie back to our strategic plan of improving access to nourishing food, strengthening our partner network, and designing our work around what communities need. So as you heard from Mary, it's not just more people that our partners are seeing. They're seeing more people dealing with more complicated and overlapping challenges. Every single pantry I visited told me they're seeing new faces at every distribution. At Helping Hands of Hamlet, they said 80% of the people they serve right now are seniors, and really shared, these are people, in their words, these are people that did all of the right things and are now seeing their pensions run out. At Central Carolina Community College Pantry, I think it's the Cougar Pantry. Hopefully I have that name right. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. I met a student that was coming there. He had just enrolled in the EMT program, and he lives with his sister and her 2 children to try to consolidate expenses in their households. And she had just lost her job that week. And he said, I'm so excited to go home and tell her because we didn't know how we were going to feed the teenagers in our house. At Victory and Dominion, they shared that they're hearing, their volunteers are hearing increasingly neighbors say, is that all? When they get their distribution, because they're seeing so many more people. It's not a criticism of the partner, it just reflects how far families are having to stretch and how far our partners are having to stretch food as well. Also heard that partners are seeing more working families, those that are employed, but after the rising cost of rent, transportation, childcare, healthcare, groceries, the math just simply does not work at the end of the month. As you heard Mary share, and I heard this particularly I think in every Eastern North Carolina partner visit about seeing more grandparents raising grandchildren. I also heard a lot more about the increasing unstable housing in our Eastern North Carolina communities particularly, and more immigrant families. So when we say the need is growing, and I know you all have been hearing that for a fortunate number of months and even years now, it's not that it's just more people that needs food. It's really the transportation, the housing, the medical costs, the lower wages, then cost of living and isolation, specifically in our rural communities. And that's all colliding together. And so while we cannot solve any of those barriers on our own, our strategic plan does call us to better understand what those barriers are and make sure we have the right partnerships and make sure we're advocating in ways that change the reasons people are experiencing hunger in the first place. We will always track pounds. It is critical to understanding, and we celebrate the amount of pounds that we are able to distribute because of the incredible partnerships we have. So shout out to our food partnerships team. And it's critical for us to count pounds to think about equitable access, but it is truly only one piece of the puzzle. And a pound is only valuable if the food is in good condition, appropriate for the household, and manageable for the partner. And that's something that I heard across our partners. Oak Grove mentioned that they had a recent distribution with 25 boxes of lettuce. This was before the lettuce recall. But they had to throw away 10 of them. And so just the extra work. And we know that from ourselves when we get boxes of food that we have to toss. And how much extra work that creates for our staff, our volunteers, and it's the same for our partners. So making sure what we are getting to our partners is usable and they are able to actually distribute it because it never became food for a neighbor. Moore County Coalition talked about the receiving bulk chicken in bags that were too large for them to distribute and be able to store easily. Truth Foundational Ministries shared that they had to move to once a month. They were distributing twice a month, but they simply don't have enough food for the number of folks that they're coming now. And they have the volunteer support, but they just don't have enough food because they're reaching about 400 families each month in that one distribution. So that predictability matters too. And we know that we are not in control of everything that is predictable, like TFAP right now, that was way down and now it's way up. But what we are in control of and what I'll talk about later too is just the communication of making sure that we are communicating as quickly, as efficiently as possible into the right people at Partners so that they are able to plan so they can use their own purchasing power and they're able to plan so they can have the greatest impact on neighbors. A few partners told me they're purchasing from Aldi or other retailers just because of consistency and quantity or price. And I know that's something that we're continuing to look at, and Carter and Mike Whittemore are thinking about how do we expand our purchasing program to better meet the needs of neighbors. And one of those items is going to be eggs coming on our purchasing program soon. Also, as a side note on purchasing program, Holly Springs Food Cupboard said, please never take milk off. It's the most amazing thing. And so we heard a lot of compliments as well. But I think the important feedback is so important because it just tells us we have to look at the full picture. We will always count the pounds. We will always celebrate the amount of food that is given to us to be able to reach the needs of our neighbors. But we also need to understand what our partners' capacity is and how they are able to get that out and find the right homes for it. I think every single partner I visited mentioned protein and the need for more protein. And it wasn't just because of protein. It was the dignity that provides of creating a full meal when you feel like you have protein and the sides, and you can go home and create a full meal for that. So they can stretch the produce and dry goods a little further, but the protein we all know, and that is a key piece of our strategic plan, is how do we continue to increase the produce and protein that we are getting out to our communities. I think one of my strongest takeaways was infrastructure is not separate from access. It absolutely creates access. At Emmanuel Food Pantry, which many of you all know in Durham, their food arrives on pallets and has to be unloaded by hand into a 20-foot refrigerated container outside the facility. They have a tremendous volunteer base. They actually said we're rich with volunteers, but their physical setup still limits what they're able to do. Oak Grove was a great example of what a targeted investment can help and make possible. With food bank support, they have added a circular drive, a freezer, a refrigerator, carts, tablets, tables, and all of that's made the pantry safer. It's made it easier to operate and more capable of serving the neighbors who are, especially the increased number of neighbors they're seeing. Partners talked a lot about walk-in coolers to be able to take in more of that fresh, healthy food, generators, refrigerated vehicles, but they also talked about shelving and carts and canopies and tablets. One partner mentioned safety belts with back support, which I had not thought about before, but they were talking about their aging volunteer base, and regular safety belts don't work. That extra back brace makes some of their volunteers be able to volunteer and volunteer for longer as they age. And so it's the small things to the really, really big things that make access possible. I also saw incredible innovation, and for those that have visited Partners, it's no surprise. We have a lot of carpenters in our partner network. I mean, they are building structures to make things work and to ensure the accessibility. Building 323 in Middlesex actually showed me something I had never seen before. It's called a CoolBot, and it allows you to turn a home window and air conditioning unit into a cooler space for produce. So with insulation, it allows you to get the home AC unit lower and low enough to be a produce cooler. So, thinking about how do we, the same way Feeding America tries to highlight what's happening in the network of food banks, how do we better lift up those examples in the network as lower cost options for folks to be able to have more infrastructure? Again, this all aligns with what we've been talking about. Our updated partner framework is going to help us better understand these needs more consistently, identify where our targeted investment can unlock more access, create more resources, connect partners with more resources, because these type of operational challenges determine how much food partners can distribute and how we can meet the need of neighbors and what kinds of food they can distribute and which neighbors they can reach. So we have that in our strategic plan of committing to continue to deepening our investments in our partner network for capacity and infrastructure. Our rural communities, really talked about a lot of the different challenges that they face. These counties are large. People may live many miles from a grocery store or pantry. Public transportation is usually non-existent. And if it is existent, it's very limited. At Mount Zion, they shared that neighbors arrive at their drive-through distribution on lawnmowers, on bicycle, and on foot. and their site is not close to homes or neighborhoods. These people are coming long distances. And I think, that one example just shares how deep the transportation barriers are. Our rural communities also, it's not just on the neighbor side that the transportation is a barrier. I heard about it on our partner side too, of cost $150 round trip to come to the food bank to pick up food. And we only have money to do that once a month. So it's about being able to get food to neighbors, but it's also getting food to our partners is a challenge. Turning Point has shared that they are doing now home deliveries, and I know several of our partners are doing home deliveries. And I talked to several partners who want to do home deliveries and want to be connected with partners that are already doing that to figure out how they can do that, how they can scale it. They also intentionally chose hours by looking at when pantries in their area are closed, and that's the hours that they're open. And I think when we think about our updated mission statement of connecting communities, that's the real power of our network and of our role in the network, is being able to connect the partners who are in the same community, being able to connect the partners to share these innovations, being able to connect them to share resources. We talked about from our rural communities of, I need a refrigerated vehicle, but I only need it twice a month. How can we share a refrigerated vehicle in our more rural counties? And is that something that we can help facilitate partners who are in need of those types of options and sharing of resources so that they can have that more flexibility, they can have that more access? And I think that is a real strength of ours and a superpower of ours, to be able to better make those connections and find those areas of opportunity with our partners. Dignity also came up in every community. It definitely didn't always look the same. Mother Hubbard, the original name of Martha's Mission, but a different partner agency, but Mother Hubbard shared with me that neighbors had thanked their volunteers, not for the food, but for how they were treated at one of the lowest points in their lives. They had seen an influx of seniors, and the seniors had shared just how much it meant when it was so hard to ask for help, how they were welcomed into that community. You heard about Martha's Mission and the kids' bags. They're making kids look forward to coming to a pantry, which is incredible because they feel special, they feel taken care of. And several of our partners are doing those types of things, or a kid's play space, so that it's exciting and warm and welcoming. And it's all about how we do the work. What we do is critical, but how we do the work is what people remember. And client choice is something that Feeding America has always said is the best practice. I know we have shared that as a best practice as well. And one of the assumptions that was really challenged during these visits is that doesn't work well for everyone. That's a practice. And if that's what your neighbors are asking for, that's the right practice. But several of our partners went to drive-through distribution during COVID, and they surveyed their neighbors and they said, please don't go back to client choice. They feel that, whether it is more dignified because they don't have to get out of their car, there's less stigma with it, where they may have mobility issues, or they may have time constraints, and that is just easier for them, that the client choice was not their choice of how they would want to be served. Neighbor Up, which is in Cary and Apex, they were relocating a full mobile home community, and they asked their partners, would you rather receive a Food Lion gift card each month, or would you rather be able to shop at the pantry? And I for sure thought they were going to say everybody chose the gift card, or 90% chose the gift card. It was 50-50. And if anybody's been to their pantry, you know why. It's so warm and welcoming. It's a beautiful space, and it feels comfortable for folks. And so, I think, while sometimes dignity means choice, sometimes it means a drive-through for privacy or convenience. Sometimes it means translation services, or a reminder call, or a safe place for children, or even carrying food to the car for a neighbor. It's really about understanding your community. And one partner shared that after attending a food bank training, they changed how they displayed food. And they, instead of putting out disconnected items, they group items into meals. And the neighbors had shared how meaningful that was. And they're using recipes from our nutrition education team to be able to make that meal. And so our standard is dignity, but I think we really need to think about there's no one compliance, there's no one best practice. When we're talking about dignity and what it means for neighbors, it's helping our partners understand how they can get that continuous feedback from their neighbors. And we know that our partners know their neighbors way better than we do. And how can we help uplift the understanding that they have so that we have greater understanding to be a better partner? I think that balance between having shared standards of making sure dignity is a priority and local flexibility is really essential as we think about executing our strategic plan. I heard from every partner how much they deeply value the relationship. You heard it from Mary as well with the food bank. And I think in almost every visit, specific staff members were called out by name for responsiveness, for care, for expertise. Many folks and our drivers, I heard Manny is like family so many times. So many folks referred to the food bank team as part of their family. And one leader told me, it's really easy to be good when things are good. What matters is how you show up when things are not good. And she said, I've watched the food bank adjust, pivot, and keep doing incredible work through this very difficult period. And that makes me know you're in it with us. She said, I thought we would get a call one day and say the food bank just can't continue because you were just receiving hit after hit from the federal government, state government, the increasing need. And she said, every step of the way, you showed how you were in it with us. And so it was incredible to hear, and it was a privilege for me to hear, but all of that recognition goes to all of you and your colleagues across the organization. And I wish every one of you could have heard how the partners talk about the relationship that they have with each of you. When I think about our role, we will always be the reliable source of food. That is a core, that's our superpower that we are focused on, of making sure that we get the right food and enough food out into the community. But really heard from partners, they need us to be a strong communicator, the capacity builder, a convener, an advocate. As a communicator, they shared over and over clear, proactive information. It's not about sending more emails. People have plenty of emails, but about getting the right information to the right person with enough context and lead time so that they can do something with it. Partners also want more opportunities to learn from one another about things like home delivery facilities, fundraising, nutrition, technology, data, analytics. They also saw an important advocacy role for us. I heard that often too. North Raleigh Ministry specifically talked about how the food bank can lead in areas where individual partners can't, may not have the capacity, may not have the expertise, and really how we can be a stronger voice and partner with our network for that. So the ask certainly was not for perfection from our partners. I just want to make sure that, but there was some really great feedback that I do think will help us be able to communicate better, be able to communicate clearer. Partners know things are going to go wrong, but it's how we respond is really critical. So when I boil everything down, I came to 6 strategic takeaways. First is access, continuing to improve consistent access to the core foods partners need, critical protein. Continuing to examine our programs and make sure we are not setting it and forgetting it. One example came up several times was the retail donation program. Partners love the retail donation program. I actually got to see the Walmart truck coming in when I was at Martha's Mission. But as more stores and agencies continue to come on board, are we continuing to look at, do we have the best partnerships and pairings? Are there opportunities to switch some of that up? So making sure just we're always looking and assessing and changing to meet the needs of the communities. Second was invest, continuing to strengthen infrastructure and operational capacity so that we can focus on that access, communicate, get the right information to the right people clearly, proactively, and enough lead time. Support, making sure that we are supporting dignified service models without assuming that one model is right for any community. And fifth, Taylor, communities are facing different challenges. I heard a lot about the opioid epidemic as well in Eastern North Carolina and how that is contributing to the increased need and to more grandparents being the primary household lead and what that looks like in their communities, from partners passing out Narcan or making sure they always have it ready at their facility because it's such a concern in their community. So helping our partners connect on those challenges that they're facing. And finally, partnering, just continuing to grow our role as a food source and a capacity builder, and just what does that look like as we think what is the best partner in the network for us, and what does that look like? How are we showing up as the best partner? So these are not at all 6 new priorities. They should not be a surprise to anyone. They're all rooted in our strategic plan, very practical guidance, I think, for how do we continue to carry out that plan for the community. I think it was just a great reiteration of what this team built for the community for 2030. Our partners, when I heard about the community member riding on a lawnmower, or the partner that keeps gas on hand because it's so expensive and they've had neighbors running out, waiting in line, knowing which seniors have pensions that are running out, knowing which distribution hours that are leaving a gap. They are so entrenched in our community, and there's so much value in that knowledge for how we can show up as the right partner for our partners as we continue to glean that knowledge. I think we bring the scale, we bring resources, we certainly bring the regional perspective, but they just really bring that deep local knowledge and that community trust. So our best work will absolutely work when we can bring those two things together. So I left all of these visits deeply encouraged, deeply proud of this team. And I think now our continued responsibility is just to execute on what we've made a commitment to and what the community has asked of us with the 2030 plan. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see faces and open up the floor for questions for me or for Martha's Mission, or Mary, Chris, if that sparked anything, or Ginger, if that sparked anything else that you wanted to share as well.
Thank you, Amy. That was wonderful. I enjoyed that presentation from you, and it really is heartwarming to hear those other stories too. And the ones that we hear are very similar. The family that is just opening their last can, and they come to us and they need something else, or the volunteer that offers to take food to another to one of our neighbors just out of the goodness of their heart. So yes, we love hearing those stories, and thank you so much for bringing those out to us.
Yeah, thanks. And adding to Mary's comments, we also see the success stories where we're helping upstream, giving the food to the families, giving the food to someone who may be unemployed for a very short amount of time. Government shutdown was a primary example this past October, and we had several federal employees come and were actually neighbors receiving food from us, and then returned as the government opened back up and they were able to resume their lifestyle. And we're so thankful for the service that we provided, gave an extra bit to refill our shelves. So I think we see that full circle impact that we have as a pantry in Morehead City as part of this network, and proud to be a part of it.
We've got a great question in the chat from Belen. And this is both Mary for your team, but also for Amy in terms of where what you were hearing out in the world. Did you hear from pantries, or in the case of Martha's Mission, are there any specific proteins that you're hearing requests from neighbors for? And if there were any other unexpected protein options that might be helpful to you beyond, the typical, we often have access to chicken quarters and things like that. Are there any other proteins that might be helpful or not to you?
Mary, Chris, I'll let you go first.
Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things is the size of the packaging. I think we receive from a retail partners packages that may be, you know, an entire 10-pound or 15-pound beef tenderloin or a 15-pound brisket, and just trying to figure out how a family is going to handle that and either manage it in their freezer or manage it as we provide it to them. You know, even if they have a household of 6 or 8 people. And so trying to figure out how we can sort of get the things that may be that big, try to get them into the right size again. I know it's not allowable for us to repackage things, but I think that's one of the challenges that our pantry runs into, is just some right sizing of the protein packages that we get generously from the retail partners into the hands of our neighbors.
I know fish is always something that's really enjoyed whenever we can get fresh fish. Our neighbors seem to really appreciate that. So I don't know if that's ever an option to have more fish available for them.
Good feedback. I heard this packaging size, often you're not alone in that. Specifically, one partner talked about the number of folks in their communities that are now living in campers, and how small camper freezer space is, that most of the size of protein they receive is not usable for their neighbors. So I think that the way we are providing protein, especially as we try to advance protein, will be critical. I did hear ground beef a lot from folks as well. And I know we tried that out with some of the agency credits to help understand if folks would be purchasing that on the purchasing program, but we'll be looking at other strategies about how we get that in as well. As far as unexpected protein, there has been conversations about plant-based protein. I think, I brought that up to a few partners. I think we need a lot of education, not only for our partners, but also for neighbors, on how to best use that, because that is not what neighbors first think about often. But that's something we're exploring as well. Brittany, I see you have a question for Martha's Mission and their superpower of community collaboration between their services offered, 8 stores and retail partnerships, and the intentional strategy to not compete with others in community. Do you want to share how you all got to that point?
Is Ginger still sitting next to you, Mary? I was just going to point
No,
to
she's
Ginger.
not.
Okay, that's
I
too
think
bad, because she's, yeah.
I think we got our food bank delivery, so she's out there, with that. But I'm going to say that when we can, we do work with the other agencies to get, to exchange the food if we get more than we can handle of one thing and then another. So we don't. There are a lot of other agencies in this area that do similar things, and we don't ever want to knock them out of the competition. We want to encourage them to be and do what they're doing. So, they understand what we're doing and why we're doing it through a voucher system. And some around here don't, and that's fine. More people can go there and more often. So, I think it's just that this community is just so giving anyway, that I believe that we're all just willing to share the resources that we have and the opportunities that we have to share with our neighbors.
Yeah, and we're serving our neighbors in different ways, like Mary's indicated, right? We're meeting them where they are, when they need it, with what we can provide, and we tend to provide a lot, but we're doing it every 30 days, and the other food pantries may provide smaller quantities but more frequently, and I think our neighbors in the region sort of understand that, and they're able to visit Storehouse Pantry, which is just up the road from us. They're able to come to us every 30 days. If they're down east, they're able to go to Lighthouse and the partner agencies down there, or up to 101. So I think I don't see us competing. Sometimes there is, like, how many heads are we serving? How many households are we serving? And I talked to Ginger about that today, that this isn't a competition. We're just trying to meet the needs. We're trying to fulfill the mission of the food bank and try to fulfill the mission of those who have donated to us and those that want to give to our community through us. And that's the most important part. We have and just get food, the best quality food as possible, into as many hands as possible, and get those children and get those families fed.
That's cool. I'll just provide a little bit of voiceover. Melody answered it in the chat as well, but asking about eggs, are they typically an item donated? We have gotten eggs more often more recently, but we heard in our strategic plan feedback over and over again how important eggs were to our neighbors when we got neighbor feedback. And so we do have a goal of this fiscal year of putting eggs on our purchasing program. If you've been following the news, you will also understand that we have 3 million eggs coming to North Carolina food banks, thanks to our Attorney General and the lawsuit for price fixing with eggs. So we are currently coordinating with the Feeding the Carolina State Association right now on those eggs and that delivery timeline. So we will be getting more eggs donated through that, and we're looking at more ways that we can have eggs available for partners. Eggs are just very hard, and that's why it's something new on our purchasing program we're testing out, because they obviously are very fragile, and they have a very quick turnaround and compared to many of our products on the purchasing program. So it'll be an interesting test for us. Any other questions? And I would also love to hear from folks if there's anything that surprised you from Martha's Mission or from what I shared. Put that in the chat or come off mute. Or really resonate. It doesn't have to surprise you. It could also resonated with you.
I'll go ahead and come off mute real quick. Mary, Ginger team, I have worked with y'all for years and I learned so much on this call today. Like, y'all never cease to amaze me. You motivate me, you communicate, and there's no such thing as over communication at the food bank. So I just wanted to say, so happy to have you on the screen today and sharing about all that you do.
Thank you, Brittany. And I will say that Brittany has often been there for us. I was going to say always, but every time I have asked her to do something, she has done it. So I guess I could say always there for us. And we thank you and the partnerships that we have with the other staff, not just in your location, but in our New Bern location. That.
Well, I echo that gratitude and admiration, Brittany, for sure. I think we'll all be raring to go for your grand opening of the new facility. So we hope we get that invite.
Yes, everybody's invited. And Chris is cooking, I understand.
Oh, even better. Thank you, Christy, for your comment about the feedback about access and dignity. For those that are not aware, CSFP is our senior box program, and they have served in person and via drive-through. And Christy shared she'd be shocked if seniors would want to go back to that. So it is really about knowing the folks that you are serving. I know we're at time. You all know where to find me if you have questions. If you have questions for Martha's Mission, you can also share those with me, and I'll make sure to get them to Mary and Chris. But I know it's hard to do a round of applause on the screen, but we'll give you shine, Mary and Chris, for all that you are making possible and your team is making possible. Thank you for being a partner. Thank you for taking time out of your days to be here with us as well. And we look forward to the continued work together. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thanks,